Good afternoon to all. Welcome back to day 2 afternoon session. Current session CO and PO attainment, Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions is handled by Dr. Pradeep Kumar Dikshit. With a brief introduction, I would like to welcome Dr. Pradeep Kumar Dikshit to the session. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Dikshit has completed his BE in EEE from Mysore University, MTech in Power and Energy Systems from NITK Surathkal, PhD in High Voltage Engineering from VTU Belgaum. Currently, he is working as professor and head of the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, MS Ramaiah Institute of Technology, Bangalore. He has served at various capacities as academician and has got vast teaching experience of 30 years. His areas of interest are high voltage engineering, outdoor insulation, solid insulation, lightning protection, electromagnetic fields, artificial intelligence to power systems, power quality issues. Professor Dikshit has more than 70 publications in refereed international journals and conferences. Professor Dikshit has completed R&D and consultancy projects worth of 80 lakhs rupees, and currently he is executing R&D and consultancy projects worth of 1.2 crores. The projects are funded by Center for Airborne Systems, DST, HAL, ACT, KPTCL, BART, Mumbai, etc. He has delivered more than 50 lectures in various workshops, FTPs, international conferences. Welcome to the session, sir. I would like to give a small announcement. So webinar links for tomorrow's sessions will be sent in the evening. So please check your mail updates or promotions tabs for webinar links. Now I request Dr. Pradeep Kumar Dikshit to take over the session. Thank you all.
Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you all for the 5-day webinar on NAAC and NBA accreditation process. Today is the second day. Already you have heard about what is vision, PEO, POSO from Dr. Madhu. And Dr. Karthikeyan has delivered about curriculum design. And Dr. Anita, today's morning session about COPO writing and mapping. My session is towards attainment of CO and PO and PSO. Just for the sake of continuation, I will start with course outcomes. Little you may feel about little repetition. Forgive me for that. I'm starting with course outcomes, knowledge, skills, and abilities that students attain as a result of a learning experience, activity, or teaching. When we write the course outcome, be written in the future tense, identify important learning requirements, be achievable and accessible, use clear language, easily understandable to students. When we are talking about the course outcomes, what are the good characteristics of the course outcomes? The good characteristics of the course outcomes are listed here. It should be measurable or accessible, clear to the student and faculty, integrated, developmental, transferable, use discipline-specific competencies and standards in order to get to the uniqueness and real-world application of the learning. Use a variety of Bloom's taxonomy levels. Morning, I hope you have heard about beautiful lecture on the Bloom's taxonomy by Dr. Anita. Whenever we write the course outcomes, so we have to follow the Bloom's taxonomy levels. Now this Bloom's taxonomy basically the original terms introduced in 1952. It goes with knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. It has been modified by the student of Bloom's in 1992. It works remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Now, when we are talking about the attainment of CO, PO, PSO, first we should know what are these program outcomes. Now, these program outcomes are defined by NBA. Now, the first outcome is engineering knowledge. The first outcome is engineering knowledge. What it says, apply the knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering, fundamentals, and an engineering specialization to the solution of complex engineering problems. Second is the problem analysis. Identify, formulate, review research literature, and analyze complex engineering problems reaching natural sciences and engineering sciences, including substantiated conclusions using first principles of mathematics. The third outcome says, design development of solutions, design solutions of complex engineering problems, and design system components or processes that meet the specified needs with the appropriate consideration for the public health and society and the cultural, societal, and environmental considerations. The fourth outcome says, conduct investigations of complex problems, use research-based knowledge and research methods, including design of experiments, analysis, and interpretation of data, and synthesis of the information to provide valid conclusions. Now, please keep this in mind, the four outcomes I have shown here with red color everywhere, complex engineering problem. The fifth outcome, modern tool usage, create, select, and apply that is appropriate techniques, resources, and modern engineering and IT tools, including prediction and modeling to complex engineering activities with an understanding of the limitations. The sixth, the engineer and society apply reasoning informed by the conceptual knowledge to assess societal, health, safety, legal and cultural issues and the consequent responsibilities relevant to the professional engineering practice. Seventh, environment and sustainability, understand the impact of the professional engineering solutions in societal and environmental contexts and demonstrate the knowledge of and need for sustainable development. Ethics, apply ethical principles and commit to professional ethics and responsibilities and norms of the engineering practice. Ninth outcome, individual and teamwork, function effectively as an individual and as a member or leader in diverse teams and in the multidisciplinary settings. 10th, communication, communicate effectively on complex engineering activities with the engineering community and with society at large, such as being able to comprehend and write effective reports and design documentation, make effective presentations, and give and receive clear instructions. 11th outcome, project management and finance, demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the engineering and management principles and apply these to one's own work as a member and leader in a team to manage projects and in multidisciplinary environments. The last outcome, lifelong learning, recognize the need for and have the preparation and ability to engage in independent and lifelong learning in the broadcast context of technological change. Now, these are the 12 outcomes that are defined by NBA. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the 1 to 4 outcomes. Why place these 4 POs in one basket? In all the statements show that one part, CEP. CEP means complex engineering problem is common to all. Though individually each PO deals with a different aspect of CEP, recognizing this commonality makes the decision or discussion easier. Now, what do you mean by complex engineering problem? How we define, how we have to understand what is the meaning of complex engineering problem? Problems, not the kind generally encountered at the ends of textbook chapters. These often test if the contents of the chapter have been understood. So it is not just having the exercise problems having in the end of the chapter. If the student understands the concept, then only it is possible to solve the problem. That is one kind of complex engineering problem. The second, I can say, these are problems that have not completely framed and leave at least a few choices for the student to make. So when a problem is given, no complete data will be given. Somewhere the student has to assume with a proper justification to get the solution of the problem. The third, problems may require use of laws of physics or bring in some mathematical tools in which the problem can be framed. There is no direct solution. They have to use either physics or some laws, mathematical tools to get the solution for the problem. Now, these normally we say complex engineering problems. So now, any other different tools can be used to obtain the solution, not only mathematics or physics or laws. You can have any modern tools to get the solution of the problems. Now, what does it means when we are thinking the complex engineering problem is placed in 4 places, in 4 POs? How, when we are mapping a particular CO to a PO, where to map, how to map? If to get the solution of the complex engineering problem, application of mathematics and sciences, if you are using, then map it to PO1. If you are using identify and research to solve, then map it to PO2. If you are utilizing design and development of solution, map it to PO3. And finally, if you are conducting investigations and research, then map it to 4th PO. So depending upon the tool what you are using to get the solution of the complex engineering problem, accordingly, your CO has to be mapped to corresponding PO. Now, just to explain what is the meaning of the complex engineering problem. I'm basically an electrical engineer, so I feel, and for me, it will be a little easy if I take an example of electrical problem. It may be electrical science, I can say. Here, I have considered 2 capacitors. Now, one that is the C1 and other capacitor is C2. They are having both the equal values of 1 farad. Then a resistance which is unknown value. There is a switch where I can close at t is equal to 0 plus. Now, what is this problem? Capacitors are of the same value. Initially, C1 is charged to certain volts, V volts, and C2 is in a fully discharged state. The switch is closed at t is equal to 0 plus. Then here the requirement is we have to determine the energy dissipated in R at t is equal to infinity. So the value of R is not known, but it is only given R is greater than 0. With knowing 2 values of the capacitor, closing the switch at t is equal to 0, so we have to find what is the energy dissipated in the resistance R. How to solve this problem? What kind of methods we have to use? If I analyze this problem, now check, does the question require just memory recall? So whatever the subject courses I have studied, using that, can I get direct solution? No. Can it be solved by direct application of textbook material? No. Does it require you to frame the problem in appropriate context? Yes. Apply knowledge, that is maths and science, to arrive at a solution. Yes. What is that? So if you apply the simple method I'm talking, there are so many other methods. Laws of conservation of energy and of electrical charges, I can find the value of R. So this is one kind of complex engineering problem where we have to think, we have to apply certain tool to get the solution. That is called complex engineering problem. Now, I will take another example as basically electrical, and I am little specialized in high voltage. Now I will say, I have given you a simple source, 230 volt source, and I will ask you to measure the voltage across the supply. So when you are measuring the voltage across the supply, the simple method is I can use a voltmeter here and just connect that voltmeter across your supply. The voltmeter will read the voltage. Simple. But now I will say the source, whatever I'm considering, instead of 230 volts, I'll say 100 kilovolts. The source is now 100 kilovolts. Once again, I'll ask you to measure the voltage of the source. It is not possible to use directly a voltmeter. Some other means has to be taught by the student. Now here, what we are doing, I'm using a simple potential divider. And in this potential divider, I have got a ratio of almost 1000:1. 1 mega ohm resistance connected in series with 1 kilo ohm. Now across the 1 kilo ohm, I am going to measure the voltage. So it is having 1000:1 ratio. If I'm applying 100 kilovolt, the voltage across 1 kilo ohm, I will get 100 volts. And that 100 volts, I can easily measure using 100 volts voltmeter. This is one method. Now, I will tell, again, I'll give you the same source. Again, I'll give you the same source. Then I'll ask, you measure the 100 kV using ammeter. It is not using voltmeter. I'll ask you to measure 100 kV using an ammeter. How to measure? So, a simple means, I have 100 kV meter here. I will connect 1 mega ohm resistance in series with the 100 kV source. Then the current flowing will be around 1 milliampere. Right? Current flowing will be around 100 milliampere. I will connect a 100 milliampere ammeter here in series, and the milliammeter is calibrated to read voltage. That means whatever the meter we have here, the calibration is 0 to 100, but basically it is a milliammeter, but instead of writing milliampere, I will write it as kilovolts. So if I apply 50 kilovolts, the current will be 50 milliamperes. Then your needle will show at 50, but I will read it as 50 kilovolts. Similarly, if I apply 100 kilovolts, 100 milliampere current will flow, then it will read it as 100, but I will read it as 100 kilovolt. That is the normal principle of measuring the high voltages up to the level of 500 kV. So normally we use the series meters. We use the series meters. Now these are just two simple examples I have taken to explain what is the meaning of complex engineering problem. It is possible, even though if I take two parallel plate capacitor, very easy, I can say what is the potential distribution, what is the field distribution between the two plates, very easy. But if I am going to drop a small metal piece in between the parallel plate capacitor, in the medium, dielectric medium, then if I ask you to find what is the potential of the metal piece placed in between the two parallel plate, there is no direct solution. I have to go for some other method. I may use modern tools. I may use finite element analysis to find what is the potential of that metal piece falling in between the two parallel plates. So such kind of problems, there are so many. I have maybe given very simple problems. In almost all branches, we have problems where we are not having direct solution. They are called complex engineering problems. Now, our session here is attainment of CO, PO, and PSO. Now, once we are going to the attainment, to estimate the attainment, what all the assessment tools we are going to use? The assessment tools, so here what we are using is the direct method and indirect method. So the direct method, it is continuous internal evaluation internal assessment, normally we call it as CIE, and another is semester end examination, SEE. In indirect method, there are different surveys. Here I have listed 3: employer survey, or it may be industry survey, alumni survey, and student exit survey. So they are the main 3 surveys we are going to adopt in indirect method. Now, what is the process to find the attainment of COs, POs, and PSOs? Now here, to the process, whatever it is involved, whatever we are doing here, I'm explaining here. First step, it is for one course. I will consider the course and I want to find the attainment of COs of this course. I'm going with the direct method. In this direct method, as mentioned earlier, we have continuous internal evaluation, we have semester end examination. I'm assigning 20% weightage for the CIE and 80% weightage for the ACE. This percentage can be changed with proper justification. Now, once if I do this, I am going to get the attainment of COs. Now, how to get this attainment of CO? I am going to explain in the coming slides. Now, once you get attainment of COs, then the next step is finding the attainment for POs and PSOs. Now, in this first step, if I want to find the attainment of POs and PSOs, the first step is mapping should be done. So we have to map the COs to the POs and PSOs for a particular course. And again, this attainment will be direct method and indirect method. Now, in this direct method, directly, I'm going to consider whatever the attainment of all the COs I have estimated for a given course. I will give again weightage of 80%. Then in the indirect survey, we are going for indirect method. We are going for the survey, employer survey, alumni survey, and student exit survey. And in that employer survey, student survey, and alumni survey, I can assign the different weightages, 30, 30, 40. Then whatever attainment I'll get, I will give the weightage of 20%. Now adding this 80% and 20%, I'm going to get the attainment of POs and PSOs for a single course, And this procedure has to be repeated for all the courses in the program. Then finally, we are going to get the attainment of the program. This is the process for attainment of COs and POs and PSOs. Now, what are the tools we are going to use for the direct attainment? The process used to gather the data upon which the evaluation of course outcomes is based. The examples of data collection process may include, but are not limited to, specific internal assessment tests, assignments, seminar, mini project, term paper, semester end examination, project work, and so on. So there are the different tools to gather the data to estimate the attainment of CO, PO, and PSO. Now, before attaining, we have to set the attainment levels. What is our expectation? What is our expectation? Because the whole process, either it is NBA or NAC, we are in the outcome-based education, OBE process. What is the meaning of OBE process? Finally, it is the outcome. When you go with the NBA with 10 criteria, when you go with the NAC with the 7 criteria, there are different aspects to see the outcome of the program or the institution. One among is your PO, CO attainment. Now we have to set the levels for that. What is our expectation? The attainment levels shall be set considering average performance levels in the university examination, or any higher value is set as target for the assessment years. Attainment level is to be measured in terms of student performance in internal assessments with respect to the course outcomes of a course in addition to the performance in the university examination. Next, how we are going to measure the course outcomes. Measuring course outcomes attained through university examination. One is the CIE, continuous internal evaluation, and another is going to be the university examination, because it depends whether you are tier 1 institution or tier 2 institution. Tier 1 institutions have academic autonomy, and tier 2, they are the affiliated institutions. In tier 1 institutions, we have provision to get or to gather the data for individual questions and individual COs. Whereas in case of tier 2 institutions, because they are affiliated to university, it is difficult to get the data for individual questions. Now, target may be stated in terms of percentage of students getting more than the university average marks or more as selected by the program in the final examination. For cases where the university does not provide useful indicators like average or median marks, right, etc., the program may choose an attainment level on its own with proper justification. When you set the attainment for any course, for any program, any outcome, either you take the average result of the university, or you can take with your experience what is the success level of your students in that course in the previous 2 or 3 years. Based upon that, you can set the attainment level with a proper justification. Now, attainment levels versus targets. This is clearly given in Tier 2 SAR format of NBA. Attainment level 1, because when we are talking about the attainment, as far as NBA is concerned, they observe this attainment in level 1, 2, 3. What is attainment level 1? 60% students scoring more than university average percentage marks are set attainment level in the final examination. Attainment level 2, 70% students scoring more than university average percentage marks are set attainment level in the final examination. The third level, 80% students scoring more than the university average percentage marks are set attainment level in the final examination. This is a simple example. There will be a change. The 60 can be 50, 70 can be 60, 80 can be 70 with a proper justification. And when I am saying 60% students scoring more than university average, there we have to define what is that university average. If I am going to say 60% as the university average, then I have to say 60% students scoring more than 60%, 70% students scoring more than 60%, 80% students scoring more than 60%. So that attainment, that is the level we have to fix based upon the experience or the data, whatever we have available. Now, measuring course outcome attainment through internal assessment. Now we are starting with how we are going to attain the CO through internal assessment. Target may be stated in terms of percentage of students getting more than class average marks or set by the program in each of the associated COs in the assessment instruments. It is midterm tests, assignments, mini project reports, and presentation, etc., as mapped with the COs. So first, we are starting with the CO attainment through internal assessment. Now, this is the simple example I'm considering for the attainment of COs for one course through direct method through CIE. Now here I'm showing the tool. So that is your students, or the tool is the test 1. Because of the presentation, I have kept only test 1 here. The same method is for test 2, test 3, other components. So for the sake of presentation, I have taken only test 1 here. Now tool is test 1, the question 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. The Bloom's level is L2, 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 L2. And the COs which are satisfying the test 1 is CO1, and question number 1B is CO1, CO2 and CO2. The maximum marks assigned for these questions are indirectly COs, 10 for CO1, 5 for CO1, totally 15 for CO1, and 10 for CO2 and 5 for CO2, and totally 15 for CO2. I have taken an example where the number of students are only 10. There are 10 students are there. Now, after the internal test 1, the faculty coordinator has to enter the marks for each student for each question. After entering these marks, then here in the next column, I'm showing what is the total marks earned by each student for CO1 and CO2. So they are the marks obtained by each student for each CO1 and CO2. Now, this marks, we are converting it to percentage. We are converting it to percentage. So whatever the marks scored by the student divided by the maximum marks for that CO into 100 will convert it to percentage. Now, this is the conversion for the percentage for individual students. Now, after you convert this to percentage, now we have to set the levels. Now, I'm setting the level here, CIE target percentage and target level. If the student is scoring greater than or equal to 50%, I will say level 1. Greater than or equal to 60%, I will say level 2. Greater than or equal to 70%, I will say level 3. Now, we have the percentages for the individual here. Now, I'm going to fix the target. First step, I'll fix it as 70%. Target greater than 70%. That means the number of the students who are getting or achieving greater than or equal to 70% marks. Now, the number of students crossing the target. In this column 1 of the CO1, I will count how many number of students have crossed this 70 or equal to 70. Now here, in the example taken, there are 9 students. And for CO2, there are 3 students. For CO3, there are 9 students. For CO4, there are 7 students. For CO5, there are 8 students. Now on screen, I'm showing for only CO1 and CO2. There is test 1, there is test 2. There are some assignments, quizzes, everything. And based upon that, and where all put together, they will cater for all the COs. And that I'm showing it here. Now, the percentage attainment for each CO is the number of students crossing the target divided by the total number of students. In the example considered, we are having only 10 students. So 9 by 10, 90, 30, and 90, 70, and 80. Now, this attainment of CO2 is 30, very low. Now I will verify how your attainment can be improved by slightly modifying the target with proper justification. Now, if I fix the target 60%, if I fix the target 60 greater than or equal to 60%, then you can see the CO1 is remains same 90%, but CO2 has gone to 50%, and other 3 are same 90, 70, 80. So the attainment of CO2 30% when the target was 70, it has gone to 50% when the target has gone to 60%. Now, this is all the percentage attainment. Now, this percentage attainment, I will transfer this to levels. I have to transfer these to levels. And that levels I have listed here. Greater than or equal to 50 is 1, 2, 3. Now the CO1 is 90%, so level 3. CO2 is 50%, level 1. CO3, CO4, CO5, all are above target 60. So the levels are 3, 3, 3. Now this is the attainment of your CO for one course, considering only internal evaluation by direct method. Now, for the same course, I have to find the attainment of the same course through semester end examination. Now, here I have shown two, one as Tier 1 institutions. This is the Tier 1 institution and this is the Tier 2 institutions. In Tier 1 institutions, we have the autonomy, we have the flexibility to get the data for individual course outcomes, for individual courses, for individual questions. Now I'm considering same 10 students here and the maximum marks assigned in the semester end examination for each CO. Then, and I'm entering the marks scored by each student for each CO, and that is converted to percentage here. And again, I'm going to fix the target. Now here I'm fixing the target of greater than or equal to 60%. Now if I'm fixing greater than or equal to 60%, then these are the number of students who have scored more than the target. So CO1 7, CO2 9, CO3 9, CO4 5, and CO5 5. Now again there are 10 students. The percentage attainment will be 70, 90, 90, 50, 50. Now, as before in the CIE, this percentage has to be converted to levels. Now, for the Tier 1, with the same level, greater than or equal to 50 as 1, greater than or equal to 60 is 2, greater than or equal to 70 is 3. Now, these are the attainment levels of COs in terms of 1, 2, 3 level. CO1 is 3, 3, 3, 1, 1. This is for Tier 1. In Tier 2 institutions, there is no, right? They can't get individual marks for the CO or questions. It is only the total marks scored for that course. Now, this is what I have mentioned here. For that particular course, for this 10 students, what is the marks or percentage they scored in this course? These are the marks scored by the students. Now, again, I go to the COs, same target, greater than or equal to 60%. So if I count here, there are 6 students who are crossing the target. So 6 divided by 10 will come to 60. Now, once it becomes 60, now again converting that to level. Now, greater than or equal to 60 is level 2. Now, for all COs, it will become 2. That is the only difference between your Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions. Now, in Tier 1 institutions, our attainment can change, but your Tier 2 institutions, once you are getting one attainment for a course, and that number will be same for all the COs because you have no flexibility to get individual marks for that. Now, this is the attainment for SEE for one course. Now, attainment of POs and PSOs. After attaining the CO, the next step is attainment of POs and PSOs, direct method. Describe the assessment tools and processes used to gather the data upon which the evaluation of each of the program outcomes and program specific outcomes is based, indicating the frequency with which these processes are carried out. Attainment of POs and PSOs are calculated from each course from attainment levels obtained for that course. Attainment of POs and PSOs for the program are finally estimated from the attainment levels obtained for each PO and PSOs for all the courses. So then we are going to get the final attainment of the program. Now, again, I'll go back to the attainment, whatever I have estimated for the one course from CIE and from SEE. I'm just calling it as before I want to find the attainment for PO and PSO. So I have to map. First, the work is mapping of each CO to each PO and PSO. Now, there are 12 POs here for undergraduate, and the program has defined 3 PSOs. 1 to 4, they are normally we say they are the general program outcomes, which can be attained directly through your continuous internal evaluation to some extent and semester end examinations. And after 4, the program outcomes what we have, they are little more generic. Means the 5th outcome says it is the modern tool usage. 6th outcome says it is the society, health and right, your protection, that is safety. So 7, 8, 9, 10, they are more generic. If you take 10th outcome, it is related to communication. Now, the whatever we are mapping for a given subject, 5 outcomes, 2 program outcomes, it is very easy to map POs 1 to 4, which we can assess either through semester examination or through CIE or direct written test. Now, after outcome 4, it depends upon faculty to faculty, what type of assessment they are giving, what type of assignments they are giving, what type of simulations they are giving, right? Depending upon that, and not only that, what type of problems they are giving. Say, for example, if any assignment is given where the students has to use some software, then I can map that CO to PO5 because PO5 says modern tool usage. And if I'm talking about, if I'm giving some design problem, maybe in electrical engineering, I can say, you design a protective system. I want to protect a certain system or an equipment, right? I will say, you design a protective system. When I say design a protective system, it is the safety, it is the society. So I can map it to 6. Not only that, if I'm talking about a design, when I'm giving to a group of students, there must be a ethics. Then I can map it to 8 also. I can map it to 8 also. So it, after outcome 4, it depends how we are going to ask the questions, with what depth we are going to ask the question. The reason is, it is not just that whatever the terminology, whatever the word we are using in the question, I cannot directly take it to the Bloom's level. It is not, when I say Bloom's level, understanding, that is remembering, understanding, analysis, apply, right? And evaluate, create. It is not with the word. I cannot say, if I say some discuss, describe, explain, I can put it to certain level. No. When you write the level of the Bloom for a given question, the faculty has to think, what is the depth of requirement of the answer you want? What is your expectation? How much effort the student has to keep? I will just tell a simple example, which most of the engineers have studied that. Basic Ohm's law. The Ohm's law is studied by everybody, all engineers, at least in the basic electrical engineering of the first year, or nowadays, the Ohm's law is studied from almost from the high school level. But here, only the requirement, what is my expectation? If I'm asking Ohm's law for a 10th standard student, my expectation is only remember. The student has to remember and deliver that. Same Ohm's law. So then I'll put the level as L1 because I know how the Ohm's law is defined. The Ohm's law, it is defined as keeping the physical conditions constant, the current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference between the 2 points of the conductor. That is the definition of your Ohm's law. Your current is directly proportional to your voltage or potential difference. Under what condition? Keeping the physical condition constant. So if the students remembers this and explains, that is sufficient for the level of 10th standard. Then I will mark the same question to level 1. When it comes to 10 plus 2 or PUC, I am expecting something more. What is the meaning of physical condition? What do you mean by physical conditions? What is temperature? How temperature affects your Ohm's law? How temperature affects the resistance of the material? How it will change? That is the expectation. That means the student is understanding something. So the same question, I can put it to level 2 when it goes to 10 plus 2 or PUC. But when the people will come for engineering, I will explain, I will ask, right, to find the resistance, to find the variation of the distance, to find the variation of the current with the variation of the voltage. That means now I'm applying that. Now I'm applying that. So then I can map it to the level 3. But in the same condition, same Ohm's law, if I ask question, you design a heating element where I can get a temperature of 800 degrees Celsius. That means the student has to think and design so that the temperature goes up to 800 degrees Celsius. Something more involvement is there, then I can put it to the other level where it can go either L4 or L5. Means when we are asking questions, when we are marking the Bloom's level, and with respect to the Bloom's level, when we are mapping to PO or PSO, so one has to think, what is our expectation? What I'm expecting from the student? What level? That is very important when you map your CO to PO. The other point, most of the time, there is discussions, arguments, when I have to put 3, when I have to put 2, when I have to put 1. Are we going with the word? Are we going with the word? Because the program outcome 1 says the knowledge of science, maths, engineering, and also a little bit of complex engineering problem. Then when I'm talking about particular CO, in my CO, whether that terms are coming, can I map directly to 3? No, it is not that. When you write CO, when you are mapping to PO with a weightage of 1 to 3, you see that how much you are utilizing the knowledge of basic science, how much you are utilizing the formulation of the problem, how much you are utilizing the design aspects. Based upon that, you can map the weightage 1 to 3. That is one part. The other part, when we are talking about the level 3 to 1, if we say, if I take some premier institutions curriculum, there for a course, the syllabus will be 4 lines. Then it depends, the professor will decide which topic has to be dealt in detail, which is more important, where I can give more emphasis, where I can give more concepts so that it will help for the next. Then when I'm going to write a CO, if the 4 lines curriculum, whatever I'm having, if I'm spending 50 hours to complete that 4 lines, for that 4 lines, if I'm writing 4 to 5 COs, and in each CO, what is the number of hours I'm going to spend to achieve that CO? So that is one other method of putting the level 3 to 1. If you are putting more efforts there, more number of hours are required, I can put 3, 2, 1. But our curriculum, it is not 3, 4 lines. Our curriculum is unit wise. We have unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and for each unit, there will be fixed number of hours. If I'm writing a CO for one CO for unit 1, it is not advisable, right? So if I write one CO for one unit 1, that will take 10 hours. CO2, if it is written for unit 2, it takes 10 hours. Then it is difficult to say how many number of hours I am spending to attain that CO and put the level 1, 2, 3. Now we have to see when I am writing a particular CO, even though I am writing for a unit wise, then see that what is the depth covered in that CO, how much efforts the student has to put to answer for that. Based upon that, you can assign the weightages 3 to 1. I am not going little more deep in that because already you have seen the morning session. It is only for the sake of continuation. While mapping your CO to PO, PSO, one has to think how to put level 1, 2, 3. And the additional POs after 4, 5 onwards up to 12. So how to design the assignments so that the additional POs are attained as good as your program specific outcomes PSOs. Now, once if you complete your mapping, the next is attainment of COs for the course what I am considering X course. Now again it shows tier 1, tier 2. Now in the tier 1, I have attainment of CIE. It is numbers are taken from the previous slide. For the CIE, we got for tier 1, 31333. Then attainment of SEE for the course from the previous slide, 33311. Now, I'll put the weightage, 20% weightage, I'll give it to CIE, 80% weightage, I'll give it to SEE. Then, now 3 into 0.2, 0.6, 0.2, 0.6, 0.6, 0.6. They are the attainment of COs through CIE, and 80% weightage. Again, I'll multiply 3 with 0.8 and 2.4, 2.4, and so on. And these things will give you the attainment of COs through SEE. Now, the total CO attainment, I'm going to add the attainment through CIE and attainment through your SEE. So that number I'm going to get here. The 3, 2.6, and 3, and 1.4, and 1.4, they are the attainments of your COs for course X for tier 1 institutions. Now, if I consider tier 2, same, but only thing is your attainment through CIE is possible. You have control of putting the marks to individual questions. But if it is a SEE, your all attainments are coming to 2, 2, 2, 2, and all. Now, the total attainment of the COs for the course X for tier 2 institutions, it is 2.2, 1.8, 2.2, 2.2, and 2.2. Now, that is the attainment, what we are going to calculate, how we are going to calculate for one course. Now, the next step is after attaining your CO for one course. Now, the next is we have to estimate the attainment of POs and PSOs by direct method for the course X. Right? Again, for one course only. Now, the first table is for tier 1 institutions. The second table is for tier 2 institutions. Now, with the mapping, whatever mapping we have shown in the previous table, with that mapping, I can just write the numbers here, what all the attainment we are getting for each CO. So I'm going to write, I'm going to fill up this, all the blocks, wherever there is a mapping. Then the attainment, it is a simple average. It's simple average, but even though I'm saying simple average, what normally we take in this first PO, all COs are mapped to PO1. it becomes a simple average. Add all 5, divided by 5, you will get 2.3 is the attainment. Similarly, for PO2. But in PO3, you have CO2 is mapped to PO3, CO3 is mapped to PO3, and CO4 is mapped to PO3. But when I add, I'm not going to divide it by 5 because the other two COs are not contributing. The only contributing COs I'm going to consider. Sum of these 3 divided by 3 will give you attainment. It is not adding this 3 and dividing it by 5 because the contributing COs for that PO only 3 COs. So I will divide it by 3 and this is my attainment and so on. So PO5, PO6 and PSO1 and PSO2. And these are the attainments what we are getting 2.3, 2.3, 2.3, 2.1, 2.1, 2.5, 2.3 for PSOs. Now this is the attainment levels what we have estimated for course X. First one course. Are they real attainments? What I am getting 2.3? Is it giving a clear idea that if I am going to set target, say 2, that means if you are attaining 2.3, whether we have attained that? No, because this attainment, it is the calculation what we have done. We have done considering the target. The target I have kept 60% or 70%. It is, I have not kept the higher target. It is not for the full students. I am considering only the number of students who are crossed my target. Based upon that, it is calculated. So the 2.3, this attainment, what I am showing here, it is not going to be a clear idea of the attainment. So we have to change that, transfer that attainment to the mapping scale. To the mapping scale. That means if the CO1 is mapped with PO1 as 3, so attainment is assumed at 70%. If CO2 is mapped with PO1 with a scale of 1, if that attainment is also 70, then there is no meaning. The mapping having a weightage of 3 is 70. Mapping having a weightage of 1 is also 70. So that is not correct. That is not going to give you the clear idea of the attainment. So now we have to change that to the mapping scale. What is the attainment for 1? What is the attainment for 3? That will give you the real attainment. So here, how I'm calculating the 2.3, the attainment what I'm going to get divided by the highest level. The highest level is 3 into what is the mapping of that particular CO to the PO. But here I'm directly calculating for the overall course. So I'm considering only this attainment. So 2.3 divided by 3 and our level, whatever we have attained is 2.3. Now attainment I'm going to get 2.3 here. Similarly, all we are going to transfer into mapping scale. Now I'm getting 2.3, 1.4, 0.77. See, though in the attainment I can see 2.3, but when it is transferred to mapping scale, it is coming only 0.77. It is only coming to 0.77, right? Similarly, now the attainment of PO and PSOs for Tier 2 institutions, in the same fashion, we are going to write whatever the attainment we have calculated for the Tier 2 institutions. We take here and take the average. Wherever mapping is there, only that number should be there in the denominator. So then I'm going to get the attainment. Then again, you change that attainment to your mapping scale. Now here we are getting 2.1, 1.3, 0.7, 0.98, 1.3, 1.1 and 0.8 for the attainment of your Tier 2 institutions. For one course, both PO and PSOs. Now, if I want to estimate the attainment of PO and PSOs for the entire program, the same procedure has to be repeated for all the courses, whatever 30, 40 courses are involved in a program. This whole process has to be carried out for all the courses and then form a mapping table, which course map it to which PO or PSO. Then whatever the attainments you are obtaining for individual courses, enter it, then take the simple average, the number of courses involved in POs, mapping to PO, and divided by the total number of courses. So that will give you the attainment, final attainment of your PO. Now, so that I'm considering here, just as an example. Now, before going to the final attainment of PO, the PO and PSO attainment, there are two methods as I mentioned. One is the direct method and another is the indirect method. Now, till now, whatever we have seen, it is only direct method through CIE and SCE for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions. Now, it comes to your indirect method of PO and PSO attainment. Now, in this indirect method, most popularly used surveys are employer survey, exit survey, and alumni survey. Now, assign the weightages for that. Employer survey, I am assigning 30%. Exit survey, I am assigning 40%. And alumni survey, I am assigning 30%. Now, for each these surveys, you have to prepare a proper questionnaire. You have to prepare a proper questionnaire, which will satisfy, which will link to your POs and PSOs of the program. I have taken one simple example here for exit survey. Set appropriate questions for POs and PSOs related to the program. Define the rubrics and set the weightages. Normally, we follow the Likert scale, either it is 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. Now, here I have taken a 1 to 5 scale. So what is this 1 to 5 scale? I'll say strongly agree. I'm denoting it by SA 5, agree 4, neutral 3, disagree 2, strongly disagree 1. Now, once I put this weightages 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then I'm going for, I will circulate that survey to students, to employer, to alumni. After collecting, we have to calculate the attainment, percentage attainment. Now, say for example, there are nearly, say, I have taken 50 plus 13, 63 plus 68, 70 students. In these 70 students, I'm taking question number 1. It is there for all the questions, whatever it is there in the survey form. Now, in question number 1, the strongly agree, 20 students have marked strongly agree, 30 students have marked agree, 13 students have marked neutral, and 5 students have marked disagree, and 2 students have marked strongly disagree. Now, I will fix the attainment level. I'll say less than 60% attainment. I'll mark it as level 1. 61 to 70%, I'll say 2. 71 to 100%, I'll say 3. Now, the percentage attainment, I'll calculate with a simple formula. Number of students who marked strongly agree, that is SA, the number of students who marked strongly agree, into the weightage given for that, 5. Similarly, number of students who marked agree into weightage 4, plus number of students who marked neutral into weightage 3, plus number of students marked disagree into weightage 2 plus the number of students who marked strongly disagree into weightage. Now, if I substitute this 20, 30, 13, 5, 2 in this equation and whole divided by the total number of students into the highest weightage, what we have assigned, that into 100 will give you the percentage attainment. This is, I'm talking only for question 1. I'm showing a sample for question 1. So this has to be carried out for the all questions what we are doing. Now here I'm getting 77%. Now this 77%, if I compare with my target levels or attainment levels, it is falling in 71 to 100, that is 3. I'll mark it as 3. The same procedure we have to follow for other survey also, employer survey and alumni survey. Just to show the complete calculation, I am assuming the employer survey attainment level is 2.5. The alumni survey attainment is 2.2. And of course, the exit survey, we have obtained it as 3. Now, the attainment from the indirect method for the attainment of PO and PSO is, I have given 30% weightage for the employer, 30% weightage for the alumni, 40% weightage for the exit survey, student exit survey. So I'm going to write here, attainment is 0.3 into 2.5 plus 0.4 into 3 plus 0.3 into 2.2, it comes to 2.6. Now this is the attainment level calculated for the PO and PSO by indirect method. Now, if I want to calculate the final attainment for the course, weightage for direct attainment, I am giving 80%. Weightage for indirect attainment, I am giving 20%. Now, weightages can be selected with proper justification. It can be 60-40. It can be 70-30 with proper justification. Now, final attainment of PO or PSO, 80% weightage, it is 2.3. I'm taking from the previous table, for the PO1. So 2.3 into 0.8 and plus the 20% weightage, it is given for the indirect survey. In the previous slide, we got 2.6. So if I add it, I'm going to get 2.4 as the final attainment level of PO, the same procedure for PSO. This is for course X, one course. This procedure, as I mentioned, you have to complete for all the courses, then I'm going to plot the final attainment. Now, just to show for the continuity, I have taken final attainment of POs and PSOs. I have considered here 10 courses. I have considered here 10 courses and PO1 to PO12, and the program has defined 3 PSOs. And they're all the mappings for the individual courses, final mapping of individual courses to each PO and PSO. And these are the attainment levels. They are estimated from the previous procedure. Now, the final attainment is your simple average. Now, add all this divided by 10. These are the attainments we are going to get. But here, we are not going to divide as mentioned earlier. Whichever COs is contributing, that number only in the denominator. Here, no. So here we are considering if I'm having 10 courses, right? Even though if I see PO2 and PO3 and some other POs, all courses are not mapped to that particular PO. But still, I'm going to divide it by total number of courses. The reason is, when I do this, then I'm going to get the curriculum gap. So when I plot my attainment levels for entire program, then I'll see which program outcome is contributing much and which course is not which program is not contributing to the particular PO. And if you see here, whatever the graph is shown, attainment of POs for all the 10 courses. It is the PO1 to PO12. The PO1 is showing highest, obvious, because it's a basic PO where it comes your math, science, engineering, and little complex engineering problem. And as it goes higher and higher, the PO attainment goes on decreasing. Now, once the program attains the final program attainment or PO attainment, this will give you one idea, which PO is not attained properly. Say, for example, if I take the PO4, if it is going less, it is not to my expected level, my target level. How to improve that? How to improve that? Because the PO4, it is basically a design outcome. Some of the courses, not all courses are mapped there. Now, it gives an idea that I can introduce a new course where small design aspects can be included, or in the existing course, I can include small design topics so that I can map to this PO, which will strengthen my program and also the attainment will improve. The next graph, what I'm showing, it is for the attainment of PSOs, the program specific outcomes. Because already Madhu might have told the program specific outcomes. Earlier, during 2013 NBA format, the program outcomes, they were A to L. Of course, they are 12, which the program has to define themselves, keeping in mind 12 graduate attributes. But from 2016 format, so the NBA started, they have defined the program outcomes. That is, across all the institutions, the program outcomes remain same. To give some room for their attainment or specific, now the program specific outcomes have introduced. There can be 2 to 4 program outcomes for each program. And these program specific outcomes, they are defined only for UG programs, not for PG programs. No program specific outcomes for the PG program because the PG program itself, it is a specific. They are having certain specialization. So there is no program specific outcomes for PG programs. Program specific outcomes are only for your UG programs. Now, when you define your program specific outcomes, you have to keep in mind your program. In that program, what all different areas you are having, what are different areas you are having. Say, for example, if I'm going to take mechanical engineering as an example, mechanical engineering have thermal engineering or heat engineering, heat transfer engineering. They have design, they have production, they have composite. So there are mainly 4 different areas are there. If you go to electrical, so we have industrial drives, we have high voltage, we have power system, we have power electronics, and they can be, if you go to electronic side, you have communication, you have antenna, you have embedded system. So in each and every department, we have different groups, different competencies. And when you define your program specific outcomes, you have to look for that, what all the competency we are having and what my course, the curriculum, how it contributes towards this competencies. So keeping that in mind, so normally program specific outcomes are defined. Now, once you are the basic step before whatever I'm talking about the attainment. Now here we are getting the idea of our curriculum. After attaining which program outcome is not attained, it will give you idea only how to improve that. How to improve that. If you are fixing a target, if your attainment level goes below the target, so then comes your gap analysis. Then comes your gap analysis. So one has to check the reasons for that, why this particular course outcome has not attained. And when the particular outcome is not attained, what all the contributions are there. So when I am finding the course PO attainment, PSO attainment, what all the points are contributing, the CO attainment, the indirect attainment. Now, if it goes to indirect attainment, I have to see what all the points they have specified in the employer survey, whether any employer is expecting something more to be added in our program. I have to see the alumni feedback, anything more, the courses, the laboratories they have indicated to add. I have to see the exit survey, the students who are passing out. So what all the feedback they are giving, whether they want more courses, different courses, specialized courses, laboratories, hands-on. Considering that if we implement that in the coming years, right, then it will help to attain. That is one part. The other part, the maximum contribution, 80% contribution is from the CO attainment. And this CO attainment is coming from the individual courses. Then I have to see which course has not contributed much, which course has gone below the target. After going to the particular course, I have to check in that course where we have 5 to 6 outcomes, which outcome has not attained. And in that course outcome which has not attained, what is that outcome? What is that outcome? What are the different tools used to assess that outcome? Whether can we change the method of assessment? Can we introduce a new method of assessment? Or can you reframe your course outcome? So that this, once you plot your outcomes, either it is PO or PSO, so one will get an idea of the gap where we are lacking. Similarly, before you are finding the CO, PO attainment or PSO attainment, each program has to do, you list out your all programs. There may be 30 programs. Then you are having 12 POs and 3 PSOs. Each course you map to each PO and PSO. Assume that if there are 30 courses, out of 30 courses, your 24 courses are mapped to PO1. 24 courses are mapped to PO1. That means the percentage of contribution of your program towards your PO1 is 24 divided by 30. It is 80%. Similarly, you have to identify for each and every PO how much our program is contributing towards your individual POs. If you find some of the POs are going below your requirement, some POs may be 20%, 30%, then that will give you an idea what is our strength of our curriculum or program towards the attainment or towards your program outcomes and program specific outcomes. Then we have to change our curriculum, redesign the curriculum so that more number of program outcomes and program specific outcomes are mapped, which in turn help in the attainment of your POs and PSOs. So with this, I'm going to just whatever the presentation I have shown to present on a small screen. I have taken one course, I have taken 10 students, I have taken only test 1. So if you want to verify how this TDS calculation, I'll just glance once the Excel sheet. So what we have. So this is done for nearly 144 So I have showed only for 10 students, and if the number of students are more, one has to calculate for all individual students to attain CO and PO. Now, with this, I will stop my presentation. It is open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the wonderful session. So we have few questions, so which were in the chat box. So I'd like to read out a few questions what participants were asking.
Please.
So one of the questions was how to create an awareness in students about the depth of the answers that he or she has to give based on Bloom's level.
Okay. I have explained a simple Ohm's law. When you are giving a question to a student, as I mentioned, if you are asking the student only verification of Ohm's law, then the requirement is understanding of, you take the equation V is equal to IR and varying voltage for a fixed resistance, how current varies, plot the graph, that's all. It goes only the apply level. Means the student has understood the Ohm's law and they are applying to an application where by changing the voltage or varying the voltage, how your current varies. Then you can mark with level 3. Here, one more example I mentioned. If you are asking a student to design a heating element which can do 800 degrees Celsius, then the student has to think, because it is not a small temperature, it has to go up to 800 degrees centigrade. It's not only getting the 800 degrees centigrade, so many precautions has to be taken where the level goes to either analysis or evaluate level. It depends the question what you are going to ask. What is your expectation? The question must be clear. If you ask simply define, then the student will define. It can't go to the next level. It is going to be only level 1. I hope I have answered.
Sir, the next question, and many people were asking on how to set the target, like the percentage what you have told, 50%, 60%, or 70%, how to set the target for first time subjects, as well as for POs also, how to set the target.
Yeah. Well, if you see the NBSR for Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions, in Tier 2 institutions, it is very clearly mentioned. They have mentioned there is nothing to worry. What they have told? You set the target level 1, 60% of the students scoring the average percentage of the university result. That means in your institution, if there are 200 institutions, across 200 institutions, your college percentage may be 75% result. But if you take the university average, it may be 60%. So then you take the level 1 as 60% students scoring more than 60%. Similarly, level 2, 70% students scoring more than 60%. And level 3, students, 80% students scoring more than 60%. This is one option. The other option, as a first time, you know as a faculty coordinator what is the subject, because the attainment levels can't be same for all the courses. It depends upon the subject. I cannot put the attainment or target for a theory course and a probability course same. For a probability course, before setting the target, I'll see at least 2 years result in that course. Based upon that, I can set the target. Or otherwise, when it comes to the fixing the target for PO and PSO, I'll see at least 2 to 3 years result of our own institution, and based upon that, I'm going to verify in which band maximum students are lying. Then I can fix that as a target. Thank you.
Sir, one last question. What is the difference between program exit survey and alumni survey?
Yeah. See, when it comes to alumni survey, it is passed out to students. If you are taking a survey in 2020, the students have passed in 2019, 18, and so forth. The exit survey is the present outgoing students, the final year students who are leaving, right? Before leaving, we are going to take the survey, that is exit survey. They are still in the campus, they are final year, they are yet to graduate. That is exit survey. Alumni survey is the path.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for the wonderful session, very informative session. So thank you all.